Hey there, you sexy beast. This is Ariel DeVito with Be More Than Fit Personal Training, bringing you your weekly health and fitness life hack. I've got a big question to ask. Are you letting your mind bully your body? Accepting ourselves just as we are means disconnecting our past experiences from what we believe is possible for us in the future. We don't have to do anything. We get to do anything we choose that is good for us, and that looks different for every body. You now have full permission, as of today, to evict any bully tendencies that have resided in your mind, and you can start accepting compassion for who you are, who you were created to be, and the invigorating possibilities of the choices that lie ahead. So choose wisely. For more tips or to speak with a trainer, contact us through our website at www.bemorethanfit.com or on our Facebook page, BMTF Studio. This is Ariel reminding you that you deserve the best quality of life available, and it's yours for the taking.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Melissa Fertility Show. I have a really special guest here with me today, Zahra Haji, and she is actually the founder of the Yoga Goddess. I met her last year in our 300-hour yoga teacher training through the Yoga Farm. And one of the things that I love about Zahra is she's so passionate about helping women really connect with their own feminine energy and all that comes along with that. So she's a yogi, she's a teacher, a fertility coach, a psychotherapist, and just has so many beautiful gifts to give. So Zahra, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love if you would share a little bit about what brought you to your work, right? Like what brought this mission and what the work is all about for you.
Yeah. So, I got into yoga, Kundalini yoga, actually way back in 2003. And it was kind of fluky, not something that I had ever planned or imagined doing ever. If someone had told me, when I think I was like 27, maybe, someone said to me, "Oh yeah, Zahra, you're going to become a yoga teacher. Actually, you're going to be the yoga goddess, and you're going to teach women about menstrual cycles and fertility." I would have literally laughed in their faces. You're like seriously high on something. I loved doing yoga, at the gym. And when I had an opportunity to meet this yogi who did numerology, I was really excited because I don't know, I didn't know what does yoga and numerology have to do with each other.
Right.
So a friend of mine worked at a TV station, like a morning show, one of those breakfast shows. And so the yoga school had contacted the news station saying, we would like you to come and have an audience with the yogi, and we're going to do yoga and numerology. And they're like, yeah, we just had some astrologer on, so we're not really interested. But my girlfriend's like, they're like, well, you can still come and bring anyone you want. So I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Like, that sounds really cool. And Yogi Akal was his name. He did we did some weird yoga things that I'd never seen before. Kundalini yoga, it's different.
So different.
And so I was like, this is weird. And then he started the numerology and he said, "Zahra, you are a teacher." And I said, "No, I work in marketing." And he's like, "No, I'm telling you that you are a teacher." And I'm like, well, I've been thinking about doing yoga teacher training just for fun. And then, maybe I'll teach after work. I'm like, so what do you think? And he's like, "Zahra, you're in a yoga school speaking to a yogi and you're asking me if you should do yoga teacher training." He's like, "What do you think I'm going to say?" It's like, okay, I'm clearly missing something here. So that's how I signed up to do yoga teacher training, not even knowing what Kundalini yoga was. I remember crying in the shower for like a week. Like, what did I do? Why did I do this?
Yes.
Yeah. And I didn't want to be one of those cliches that said, yoga changed my life. But it literally, I am one of those cliches. Definitely yoga changed my life. And Kundalini yoga is this kind of, I don't know, alchemical power that I don't know, like, it's like you stoke some kind of internal healing power that lays dormant that you don't know about until you access it. And I always say yoga chose me, like I did not choose yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And that set me on a path that I could never, ever, ever have foreseen or imagined. I got my first teaching gig because I put up a flyer in the health food store under the school. And the manager at the main university in Toronto, University of Toronto, of the health program, saw my little flyer saying that I was, I don't know, teaching meditation or something. I can't even remember. Or Kundalini yoga. No, I think it was probably Kundalini yoga. And she called me out of the blue. Hi, I'm so-and-so, manager of athletic center at U of T. Would you like to teach Kundalini yoga at U of T? I'm like, what? What happened? And so it was like magic. The whole thing was magic. I didn't try to do anything. It literally put me on a path, and I just kept walking along the path and go, oh, okay, this is interesting. I guess I'm doing this now. And that's literally how it happened. I ended up in Belize. And it's the land of the Mayan moon goddess, Ixchel. I didn't know anything about the moon or the goddess or the feminine or anything. I, in meditation, received a name. I was told it's called Yoga Goddess. I was like, that sounds so narcissistic. Like, who am I to be the yoga goddess? And I was like, but okay, I guess. And within 2 days, I had a logo, and I did women's studies. I went back to yoga school. I learned about women's cycles and fertility and prenatal. And then Moon Goddess was born, which is my signature fertility yoga and meditation program that's also hormone balancing. So it's about restoring women's connection to their cyclical nature and the divine feminine. Mm-hmm. And that came out of my final assignment in yoga school when you had to create a workshop. And that's the workshop I created. And all my colleagues were like, you need to teach this. Like, nobody knows this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was through discovering, like literally doing, your final project and learning, like reading books from Miranda Gray and Dr. Krisha Northrup. And that's literally how Moon Goddess was born. And like coming back to why the menstrual cycle, your actual original question, I kind of went big.
Oh, perfect. Great.
I just thought, like, first of all, I was astounded when I read women's cycles mirror the phases of the moon, and that for half the month we're outward and we are social and we want to be with people and we're engaged with life and we're happy and fun. And then the second half of the cycle, we're like, don't want to talk to anyone, don't come near me, don't touch me, leave me alone. And we're introverted, introspective, and antisocial. And I thought I was just crazy, right? As a woman, I thought this is just part of the territory. I don't like, we're just, something's wrong. And so when I read that the first time, I'm like, what? Like, how does nobody know this? This is so normalizing to know that just like the moon, you have the crescent moon, which is like the springtime and the emergence of like energy, like peeking out into the world. And that's sort of like, like a breath of fresh air. And then you have like the full moon, like the summertime of like blossoming and energizing, and like trees and flowers, and everybody wants to be out and having fun. And then you have the leaves falling off the trees, and the waning moon, and the sense of withdrawal and turning inward. And then you have the dark moon, where there's no moon visible in the sky, like winter and menstruation. And so literally the menstrual cycle is mirrored by the phases of the moon, or whichever way you want to look at it, and the seasons. And women's natures follow this cyclical changeability, which is right and normal, and not psycho, which is, so I actually created a workshop called I'm Not Psycho, I'm Cyclical, period, just to play on all the words.
Yes.
Because, it was like, everyone tells you you're crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this because it's such a beautiful, like, chain reaction of events, right? It's like the lotus unfolding, like one petal at a time, until you could see what you're here to do, right? That chain reaction was how last year happened for me, like coming into these wild times that we found ourselves in. I was so grateful to have this community at the yoga farm to tap into. And I started with some of Jeannie's Kundalini work that had to do with immunity and vitality, because I was definitely concerned about the fact that in our household, my son and I tend to be a little bit immunocompromised with different health issues. And we have been completely healthy. So, and it's not because we're not engaging in the world, right? He's in school right now as we speak. Right. But, that work just kept unfolding into, the next thing, until getting to meet you in the fall and hearing those words, I'm not psycho, I'm cyclical, and realizing that there was such a potent message in there, and such an important message, not just for the women who were there, because I could see it didn't matter what age, right? Like, it was like an aha moment for so many women. We had hundreds of people in our yoga teacher training all across the world. And I just kept thinking, like, what if we had known this at 9, 10, 11, 12, or even 16, 17, 18, 19, right? Or even in our 20s, right? But throughout our entire life, there's different implications. There's that sort of like withdrawal when you begin to menstruate when you're a young girl. There's the taboo around it as you get older, and nobody really wants to talk about it. And then in my 20s and 30s, I think about, the path of sort of climbing the corporate ladder, if you will. I had a 10-year career in finance before I took a jump to work for myself. And during that time, trying to get the primarily male partners at our firm to understand, that cyclical nature of life for us was impossible, right? Because I didn't even understand it myself yet.
Yeah.
And I was starting to tap into it, but this year was like that coming together. It was like everything crystallized. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So powerful. What I really would love to talk about now is, like, what do you think it would be like if we could continue to normalize this way of life, the changes that we experience when we're so young? I was 9, I think, right? And what it would be like for young women to be able to just own that, and to be able to know that they can not only appreciate it, but they can actually use it as a catalyst for growth. Right? So I'd love to talk about that, because I envision a world where young women can actually embrace and understand and work from that space. I actually coach my current team on, harnessing the different phases of the moon. We've been working on that for about 1.5 years. And it was actually Dr. Northrup's daughter, Kate Northrup, from her book, Do Less, that we started to get into that work. So nice. Yeah. So what does that world look like to you? Like, if we could really empower young women to understand that?
Well, I think first of all, it would be so healing for shame.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much shame around the female body. There's so much shame around the menstrual cycle, and it's all inherited from patriarchal culture.
Mm-hmm.
So when a woman feels, first of all, in possession of knowledge of her own body and her own nature, nobody can tell her she's wrong, that there's something wrong with her. We live in a culture of medicalizing women's bodies and psyches, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unfortunately, so much of even the psychological terminology is referencing the uterus, saying that we're crazy.
Yeah.
I forget the word. Do you remember the word? Which word I'm talking about? That they use, that they're making literally in Latin a reference to the uterus to use a name for diagnosis.
I can't think of it off the top of my head, but like I think of the story, the path that takes us down that journey, you know, beginning with the idea of the word lunatic.
That's, yeah, lunatic, yeah, and the moon is connected.
Yeah.
But there's another word that's not coming to me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might come to me later. So first of all, I feel
hysterical.
like hysterical, that's the word. Yeah, hysteria comes from hyster, which is the uterus.
Yeah.
So right there, in psychological language, in medical language, we're literally saying that by her very nature, a woman is crazy, is bonkers, is nuts.
Right.
So first of all, when a woman knows that as a feminine being, we're simply in tune, literally, with the earth herself. We are a walking representation of the divine feminine. If you are living in ownership of that knowledge, then you are not only an ambassador of a living, breathing, walking ambassador of the divine feminine, you're calling forth the divine masculine through your very nature, like your being. So it's such a powerful, kind of like call, so that in relationship, men and women can literally support each other by being an embodiment of the feminine. The divine feminine calls forth the divine masculine. Right now we live in a very toxic experience of femininity and masculinity. And I'm not talking about just men and women, because everybody, in my opinion, all of us have learned toxic masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us have inherited a very, very shamed femininity.
Right.
And the toxic feminine, in my opinion, is the feminine that feels that she needs to emulate a masculine energy, which is again warped and toxic, in order to be strong, in order to climb the corporate ladder, in order to be taken seriously. The feminist movement had a really important place in where, you know, our journey as women has brought us. But it's time now that we have our place in the boardroom to show up as women, not as females cloaked in men's clothing. That's not the point.
Yeah.
We're not pretending to be men. That's not the point.
Yeah. And that is so powerful. And I will tell you that, you know, when I share my story of making the transition from 10 years in finance and then going out to work on my own, and I'm in the field of health and wellness now, I truly believe, Zahra, that so much of the pain and the dis-ease going on in my body, which included fertility issues and all kinds of things, had to do with getting up in the morning and putting the right pants on, right? To show up, to, to be on that level playing field. And whether or not that was my own perception or it was a projection, it was a mix of all of it. But no matter what, I still felt called to show up that way. Yeah. And there was really no room at the table for me to show up any differently. So, the last 6 years or so have been healing that and arriving in a space where I too can become that ambassador for, not only the young women, but then as we travel through time, we were talking before the show about how, in my mind, so much of the work that you've done with all of us has healed so many layers of who we are. And, thinking to women who are getting started in their careers or who are in their careers in full force, having the power, the knowledge, the ability to show up fully as themselves would really, flip the script on a lot of what's going on in our society, the overwhelm, the burnout, the constantly feeling like we're juggling so many things, because instead, if you could just wear one hat and be that person, honoring who you are as a woman, life would be so different for us.
Yeah, and you're actually wearing 4 hats if you know about your cyclical nature and your energies, right? So actually, the workplace would be far more productive because in one person you actually get 4. Right. And if you let that person actually live at their optimal capacity and self based on those 4 different archetypes, then you're actually getting way more productivity out of that person.
Right. And I have felt that significantly. Like I said, in the last year and a half, being able to start to coach my team that way, being able to work that way. I mean, even with podcasts like this, typically I will record a lot of episodes 1 week out of the month, because that's when I am really able to show up fully and articulate and be fully present, right? Yeah. So I would love to also touch on, this is going to change gears a little bit, but when it comes to the work that you do with fertility, I think this is another really huge, amazing topic, because I know what was, handed to me in terms of options when it came to the fertility issues that I was going through. Never did we cross the threshold into the world of nutrition or into the world of caring for our bodies or what could be going on in the body, that the body's out of balance. And I had this really brilliant endocrinologist who was starting to put a lot of these pieces together. And he was the kind of guy who, you'd probably appreciate this, if he noticed that, like, on my labs, my selenium was low, he'd be like, okay, so for the next couple of months, I want you to eat 3 Brazil nuts a day.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right. Yeah. And he wasn't that.
Even testing at that level is amazing.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. So as I moved into that world, that was the beginning of the real healing. And obviously we've solved the issue because I've got this wild man of a 4-year-old who runs around my house. So what kinds of programs are available if people wanted to reach out to you to learn more about work that they could be doing with you? Because I know right here in our area in the Finger Lakes, we have a lot of different fertility centers and specialists, but I have never encountered one that actually takes you any deeper than, these sort of medical interventions that are available. So.
Right. So, I mean, usually the women who end up kind of at my doorstep are kind of at their wits' end. They've tried everything. They've changed their diets. They've detoxed their chemical products. And often they have a diagnosis of unexplained infertility. They've tried acupuncture. They've tried herbs. And some haven't, but a lot of them, it's like literally at the last resort stage is when a lot of people find my work. And I think it's because it's deep. This is deep healing work. Yeah. This is not a drive-by night, like, drive-through kind
your prescription and
yeah. Yeah. this is, like you said, layers and layers and layers of healing. And for so many women, they've inherited a legacy through their lineage of a distorted feminine. Like there's so much disease in the feminine heritage. So when we do this work, when we work with the archetypes, when we work with Kundalini yoga, we're literally healing at so many levels and layers that you can't even be aware of it. It's too big, it's too much for your conscious mind to be able to comprehend. So that's for me, having witnessed over the last like 13 years now of doing this work, the healing and the kind of crazy results, like the crazy things that I've seen, because of women who've like done crazy amounts of IVF and like done all kinds of things and not be able to get pregnant and have miscarriages, and then doing this work at 40 something can
Right.
have a baby. And it can be definitely with IVF's help. I would say half and half is what I see. Women who conceive with IVF and using Moon Goddess, and women who conceive naturally in using Moon Goddess. But it's that feeling that you have some power, you have some influence over what's happening for you. Because fertility treatment can feel like just a bunch of needles being poked and prodded, ultrasound, wands up your yoni, and there's just this sense of like invasion of your body. And so having a practice that is kind of like your sanctuary, so part of it is that it's like having a place to come home into yourself too, and having something that feels like it's in your control. And then, of course, the power of the yoga itself and working with the archetypes. There's so many layers and levels of healing that you get access to. And it's not a linear process. It's not a 1, 2, 3, and you get this result. So a lot of women will get pregnant after 3 months, with an average 3 years of infertility. It's consistent with the results out of Harvard, with Alice Domar's program, the Mind Body Fertility. They've done lots of research. And so it's consistent with their results doing the Moon Goddess program, and it's something you can do from home, and it's self-paced.
I love it. It's just great to know that one, there's resources, right? That there's an opportunity that you don't, if you're watching this or you're listening and, you're someone who is struggling with infertility or know someone who is, that you don't have to wait until you're at your wit's end, right? Like you can actually reach out and begin to take that power into your own hands now. So Zahra, I want to thank you for taking the time today, because I think, we can only touch the surface of all the things that you have to offer and all of the brilliance that you have to share. So hopefully we can have you back sometime. And I'll certainly direct everyone to your website and where to find you through social media. So the last thing I'd love to do is just if you have any words of wisdom that you would love to share with anyone listening and watching now.
I really believe that we all have access to the divine feminine, divine guidance. And you might take an opportunity when you're bleeding, when you're in your menstrual phase, because that's the archetype of the wise woman. So you have access to that crone wisdom energy, and to sit in quiet, give yourself that gift of being with yourself and going inwards and retreating. And even if it's for just 10 minutes, even if it's for 1 minute, honestly, to to give like that conscious thought of, I'm in my bleeding phase. This is the wise woman energy. I have access to, like, direct access to the divine feminine in this time of my cycle, and just sit and receive. So whether or not you actually get anything consciously in your mind at that moment is not the point, but to sit with that expectation of, I'm, show me the way. I'm here and I'm open and I want to receive whatever you want to give me, whatever guidance. And you might have a question. You might have, like, I have this problem and can you show me the way through?
Mm-hmm.
And just see what happens. And the same goes if you don't have a cycle with the new moon. Use the new moon, the dark moon phase as your time to sit and say, okay, I'm here to receive the guidance that's ready for me, that you're ready to give me, because guidance is always ready to be given. It's already, actually, it's there. Like, it's kind of like waiting, and you need to open the parcel or the mailbox or the door and let it in. It's there already queued up for you to get.
Yeah, I love that. And if you're watching or listening and you hear this wisdom that Zahra just shared with us, and you think, I'm just so busy, right? Because we live in this culture that wears this badge of busyness. Do it anyways and trust. Because the first time I heard that kind of advice, I remember feeling that pain. I'm so busy. And the reality is, even if you're someone who is still driven by that outward energy, need to, like, be energetic and on the go and doing the things, the extent to which I have allowed myself to pull back, to retreat, to sit and listen during those times, to really care and nurture for myself, I experience tenfold in the opposite direction during the times when I'm out in the world. The answers come to me faster. I can accomplish tasks with ease and grace, instead of constantly feeling like I'm battling this energy. So thank you. I really appreciate that. And like I said, I would love to have you back sometime. Anybody else who is listening too, if you are into Kundalini yoga, Zahra is one of the instructors for the 300-hour yoga teacher training at Yoga Farm. And there is a program that begins now, but there will also be another program in the fall. So, come on into the Yoga Farm Kundalini community and, just start to get in touch, because this will be another opportunity to learn and experience the wisdom that you share. So have a beautiful day.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thanks for share space.